It's too easy to say, oh, Daniel Dubois is going to knock him out. Who's ever knocked out Joe Joyce? Joe Joyce has been in with some really good guys. And whereas I don't, and like, remember when they fought in the World Boxing Series when he lost to Usyk? He still gave Usyk a run, you know?
Absolutely.
Right, he gave Usyk a run. Roy Jones, Mike Tyson exhibition. Are you staying up to watch it? And even if you're not, who do you think's going to win?
Aesthetically, Mike Tyson has got himself in great shape. I mean, you know, Mike Tyson has done so well to get to this point. Mike Tyson is the reason that I'm sat here talking to you. That was the guy that absolutely made me fall in love with the sport. Dream it, believe it, become it.
Come on down. Welcome to this week's Fight is Right. And as you can see, Babatunde Ajayi has been using bleaching cream and shaved off all his hair. So now, fun and games aside, joining me, I'm really honored to say this week joining us for the show is Matt Christie, the editor of the Boxing News. Yay! Right. Matt, we've got some great fights on the weekend. We've had a really, really good fight last week. I read the review in the Boxing News. You guys were very, very impressed with Conor Benn's performance that he put in on Sky TV.
Absolutely. I think a lot of people are now saying that Conor Benn is the most improved fighter in the country. I think that without seeing every single fighter in the country, we can't make such a sweeping statement. But without question, Conor Benn has come on far more than I ever thought he would when I saw his professional debut. What he's got is the necessary levels of dedication to get to the top. Whether he has come too late into the game, only time will tell. But what I'm seeing at the moment, you can't help but be impressed with. And his personality as well is just drawing in so many people. I think there was, 300,000 people saw him last week? They're good numbers. So I'm very, very impressed with what I'm seeing so far from Conor.
Yeah, you know what? The thing that really impressed me with him, like when I first met Conor, we're going back a few years ago, they had a Nigel Benn dinner. And he just come over and he was saying like there was a talk about him turning professional then, and he said like he turned to me and goes, "Oh, Spence, I've got really big boots to fill," and I said the only boots or shoes that you need to fill your own. And if you look on him now, I think his level of dedication cannot be knocked. And there are kids that you think they want it, but do they really want it? And you think like he could be doing things to try and follow in his father's footsteps, which is going to be very, very difficult. I mean, Nigel Benn, one of Great Britain's greatest world champions, 2-weight division world champion as well, been in classics, never lost to an American. How great is that in Nigel Benn? So it's hard, right? But you cannot be nothing but impressed with his growth of improvement. I thought it was an excellent performance that he put in last week. And now the talk is, Matt, like, Josh Kelly's got one fight coming up, right? And after that, for 2021, it will be Conor Benn versus Josh Kelly. What a fight.
It's a really good fight. And do you know what? I mean, I was saying it the other day in actually in the Boxing News podcast, is that Conor Benn has now got himself in this position. He couldn't have got in this position if he'd have lost a fight up to this point. Now he's here. I just want to see that education continue. So if he loses a close one to Josh Kelly, but he continues to learn, then he could still have a very bright future. I don't think they need to be fearful now about keeping that O, particularly in this environment. So whatever happens with Conor Benn moving forward now, I think everybody's going to be watching him. But the crucial thing for him now is just continue that education. That doesn't necessarily have to be win, 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 win.
I hear that, but unfortunately, how it goes is this: is like we look at things like you're only as good as your last performance. I'm not, and if we're looking at his last performance, he was very, very good. And because of that, now we want to see him in fights because loads of people are calling him out. There's loads of kids who who are calling out in a welterweight division, because the welterweight division right now is firing. We've got McKinson, you know what I mean. We've got Too Slick Chris there as well. Chris Congo.
Yeah.
The Albanian kid, what's it, Marku? Who's just signed with Matchroom. It's juicy. Josh Kelly's there as well. It's juicy. Chris Jenkins. It's a great time, like, for the welterweight division domestically in the UK is absolutely buzzing.
Yeah, it is. But I suppose the point I was trying to make really was that any of those fights are really appealing. But then if he was to lose, it doesn't need to be the end. Yeah. There's always this feeling with a prospect, particularly with someone like Conor Benn. And we went through it with Chris Eubank. When Chris Eubank, maybe not when he lost to Billy Joe Saunders because it was a close fight, but when he lost to George Groves, it's like, okay, that's the end of this whole pantomime show with Chris Eubank Jr. now. Whereas the truth is, he was just learning, and he's moved on from that. And I think we could see something similar with Conor Benn. But yeah, some really exciting fights to be made.
Yep. Talking about exciting fights, Matt Christie, we've seen the breakdown in the boxing news. We've got really, really big domestic clash. Two heavyweight guys in Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce. How do you see that fight going, sir?
You know what? When it was first made, my instinct was that Daniel Dubois would stop Joe Joyce at around the halfway mark. Now, I think that's the prediction that we've got in this week's Boxing News, where Paul Wheeler was the author of that preview. So he has gone with that.
Paul knows, the young kid who's just coming again.
Yeah, but do you know what? At one point, slightly off subject, but related, at one point, Paul Wheeler went through 43 fights in a row. He was closing in on Floyd Mayweather's 49-0 at one point. He was 43 fights with getting them correct. And you know that's quite hard to do.
That's damn way near impossible to do.
Yeah, so Paul Wheeler knows his stuff. So Paul Wheeler has gone for Daniel Dubois.
I got to salute him on that one.
So Paul Wheeler has gone for Daniel Dubois. I understand that, but I've just got this nagging feeling that Joe Joyce is going to do it. And I think, Spence, you and I were talking earlier on this evening about Joe Joyce's superior experience at every level. And if you're struggling to pick a winner, and then you start to compare the experience, that's where you can find the winner. 9 times out of 10, the fighter, if you're talking about two fairly inexperienced guys at professional level, the fighter that has had the greater education and the greater experience amateur level will generally come out on top. Now, the reason I'm not completely certain with it is Joe Joyce isn't that kind of archetypal boxer that looks like he's been doing it for years and years and years. He makes mistakes. And you wonder as well with Joe Joyce, it's the other thing with Joe Joyce. Now, we're told he's durable. We're told that he can take a shot. But sometimes when boxers become a little bit too content in the fact that they can take a shot, that they can become a little bit complacent. And you do wonder if Joe Joyce will be able to stand up to Daniel Dubois. Because although he can take a shot, can he take what Daniel Dubois will be doing? I say all that. My pick is still Joe Joyce to win in the second half of the fight.
Okay. Because when we look at Daniel Dubois, if I didn't know Daniel Dubois' dad, I'd swear to God he's a love child of Frank Bruno. Seriously, he is so Bruno-esque in certain things, bar the fact that Frank Bruno had a very, very discredited jab that should have been credited, because Frank Bruno had an excellent jab. We go back to Frank Bruno's fight they had with Lennox Lewis. What was that, in 94? He was out jabbing Lennox Lewis. It was. Lennox Lewis has got one of the best jabs ever, and he was out jabbing Lennox Lewis. I think with Daniel Dubois, whereas we haven't seen him in there with anyone, right? I think his most vicious KO was that of AJ Carter. I thought that was a horrible KO, right? And this is no disrespect to AJ Carter, but AJ Carter in comparison to Daniel Dubois, but I have seen Joe Joyce get hurt. Brian Jennings hurt him with a body shot in the first round with left hook to the body. It properly hurt him. And I'm looking at, and Jennings isn't a big heavyweight. He's an experienced heavyweight, not a big heavyweight. And that brought concern to me. But if we look at his body then to his body now, he's like, well, I've got to address this matter. Like, I better start doing some proper runs and doing some proper setups right now and conditioning myself to take those body shots. As much as people thinking that this is going to be some knockout fight, my pick is that this fight's actually going to go points, right? I think that this fight is going to go 12 rounds. I think at the level that both guys are fighting at, I think as professionals, it's going to be an experience that they're not used to. They're not used to the ballyhoo and the hype or all eyes just being on them. And I think that's going to make guys very tentative. And I could see this fight actually going points. And it's as crazy as it sounds, that's how I see it. Either that, because it's too easy to say, Daniel Dubois is going to knock him out. Who's ever knocked out Joe Joyce? Joe Joyce has been in with some really good guys. And whereas I don't, and like, remember when they fought in the world boxing series when he lost to Usyk? He still gave Usyk a run,
Absolutely.
Right, he gave Usyk a run. So I can see this fight going points. And if it does go points, then I slightly favor Joe Joyce to win. But similarly to the Conor Benn scenario, I don't think a loss to Daniel Dubois right now is going to be that damaging. I don't, because I think he can rebuild and they can use the adjective that he was a young guy going into this fight and blah, 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 and all the rest of it. But if you put a gun to my head and say, choose a guy, then I'm going to choose Joe Joyce because of his experience. But I just got a niggly feeling that Daniel Dubois could knock him out. So I'm not sitting on the fence. If I had to choose someone, then I'm gonna go for a debatable points win for Daniel Dubois. And I'm saying debatable, it's gonna be uproar with it. I think that it's gonna go points. I don't think it's gonna be so tight. I think it's gonna be a very messy, scruffy fight because of their styles. And if you think about it, every time I watch Joe Joyce, it reminds me of Peter Crouch when he used to do the robot. Remember that? So, right. So every time I see him, I want to put some oil on him, like he's the Tin Man in Wizard of Oz. He's very stiff. But in saying that, Matt, I don't get it because the guy's very athletic. He does that caballero, he does backflips and all of that. But I would like to see him bring that kind of athleticism when he fights. I think he fights the way that he fights because it's a safety practice of his, and he's realizing the amateurs have become very effective. I still think it's a very good fight. Now, lastly, before you go, you know what we're going to talk about?
I've got one question for you before I go, because I'm not clear. Because you said you're not going to sit on the fence, or you're not sitting on the fence. Then you said Joe Joyce. Then you said Joe Joyce will win on points. And then you finished it by saying Daniel Dubois will win on points.
I said Daniel Dubois could knock him out. How about that one? But if I was to, all right. This like hand on heart.
So what is your prediction?
Right, hand on heart. I'm gonna be real with you. I don't rightly know, and the reason why I don't, I'm being real, bro. I'm being real, right?
That's the beauty of the fight, though, isn't it? That's the beauty of the fight.
I know. You know why? Because neither have shown me something in their fighting that I can trust. And that's not in a bad way. It's just that I haven't seen it. But I'm slightly, if that's the case, then I'm leaning towards Joe Joyce because Joe Joyce has been in with a better pedigree of opponents. Yeah. That's what I'm going with. All right, I'm going with Joe Joyce. I'm not on the fence no more. You've badded me up. You know what I mean? Tundi's light-skinned Nigerian cousin, Matt Christie, right? That's what's happened. That's who I'm going to go for. But seriously, moving on, because I know you got to go. Roy Jones, Mike Tyson exhibition. Are you staying up to watch it? And even if you're not, who do you think is going to
win? I will watch it. Whether I'll stay up or not, I don't know yet. I mean, as the editor of Boxing News, I've got to watch it.
Oh, sorry. Are you that's what you do, right? Okay. All right. Hey.
I've got to watch it. But I've got to watch it, though, haven't I? I think that if there is to be a winner, I'd be surprised if there was. I think the whole thing will be called off. I think it'll be a bit of a mess, and I think it'll be horrible. But if there is to be a winner, I think it'll be Roy Jones. No doubt, really, in my mind that after all this time, that Roy Jones will be in better physical condition than Mike Tyson. Aesthetically, Mike Tyson has got himself in great shape. I mean, you know, Mike Tyson has done so well to get to this point. Mike Tyson is the reason that I'm sat here talking to you. That was the guy that absolutely made me fall in love with the sport, made me become completely besotted with the sport. Was Mike Tyson all those years ago when I was a little kid, and he was world heavyweight champion or WBC champion, and then on he went. But to think that, or to suggest that he could win a boxing match at this point after the way he's been living for the last 15 years is insane. Incredible. The whole thing still defies belief to me.
Right. I'm of the same thing of you. What's happened is this is like, we remember Mike Tyson when Tunde used to have the Mike Tyson part in his head when we was kids, right? Seriously, he did, right? We love Mike Tyson, but as I'm saying that, as a boxer, I loved Roy Jones. I thought Roy Jones just broke rules, did things. He went by the name of Superman, and he was Superman. But I think because of where they're both at this time, Roy Jones completely cannot take a shot. Let's be real, right? But it's an exhibition. I think they're wearing 18-ounce gloves, right? I think this favors Roy Jones because it's a glorified spar. And I think even now in glorified spars, Roy Jones will fare okay in the fact that it's a glorified spar. I still can't get out of my head that last time I remember seeing Mike Tyson doing anything is when he just was exhausted against Kevin McBride. So we just got to be real. But I think Mike Tyson has, regardless, whatever happens, just to see how he's reinvented himself, how he's doing excellently well with the weed that he's selling right now, the fact that his podcast is booming. It's like the second highest listened to boxing podcast in the world after Joe Rogan. So yeah, you got to salute him for that. I just think that turnaround, or the way that he's been open, the guests that he's had on his show, we're winning Mike to win. But at the same time, I've been a massive fan of Roy Jones. I think Roy Jones was, I used to copy a lot of Roy Jones as well, badly, but I used to try and copy him. But I think it's crash TV, but nobody should knock the fact that we're living in a world now that entertainment is king, not cash, and the entertainment generates cash. So I would like to see none of them get hurt. There's gonna be some twists and turns. Maybe a fan man's gonna come into the ring or something. I don't know what's gonna happen. Maybe something crazy is gonna happen. I don't know what's gonna happen. Whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. And the funny thing about it is this is like, you know that Jay Prince was actually gonna promote Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones when Roy Jones became heavyweight champion of the world, right? When he beat John Ruiz. And they were holding out. They held out. They wanted to get 50 million. I think it was something like 30 million. And they held out. And then Roy Jones said, to hell with this. He wanted more money. And he dropped down in weight to fight Antonio Otava. And Antonio Otava, he gets that sneaky decision against him. And Antonio Otava knocks him out subsequently in the return. And if that fight had happened then, I'd have been very interested to watch it. Properly, I would have been really interested to watch it because Roy Jones always called out to say he wanted Mike Tyson because he had that burning desire in him. Like, I don't want to fight the old Mike with a Mike Tyson when he was too big, too strong. But this new reinvention of Mike, he wanted to fight Mike Tyson. That Mike Tyson wanted to fight him. I'm just going to watch it for the sake of watching it. I mean, I'm not happy that it's happening, but I'm not unhappy that these two are getting it on.
No, I hear you. I think so. There's a lot of people, a lot of my friends that are not into boxing, apart from very, very occasionally, but they're kind of excited about.
You've got friends that don't watch boxing? Nah, mate, cut them off,
yeah,
mate.
That's what keeps me sane. I tell you, it keeps me sane. But they're kind of excited about this fight, and you kind of think, people could end up being disappointed. All I'll say on it before I go, is that everybody that's getting excited about seeing Mike Tyson looking so great in these clips on the pads,
That don't mean nothing.
Go back and look on YouTube. You'll find him looking 10 times better a couple of weeks before he was fighting McBride 15 years ago. And look what happened there.
All right. And there lies the story. Matt Christie, editor of the Boxing News, our special guest, our stand-in for Baba Tunde Ajayi. You know what I mean? When I first watched, I thought Tunde was using bleaching cream, right? But our stand-in for Tunde Ajayi, seriously, plum-pleasing pleasure. And listen, grab Matt Christie's Boxing News, because it's Matt Christie's Boxing News now. You know what I mean? You have the accolade of history on your shoulders, my friend. Just remember that, because you're the editor of the Boxing News, the greatest magazine in the whole wide world for boxing.
Appreciate that, Spence.
Take care. God bless, brother. Thank you.